Hello and welcome back to me and my screwdriver, the only channel that has thought about the upcoming and unconfirmed and scrapped killers in Forsaken in years and years and years. So I was looking at the Forsaken wiki recently and I was thinking about a lot of the upcoming / unconfirmed killers / one scrap killer, which I will explain why he's on here in a second. And I was just kind of thinking, what do I think about these? Because I've been looking at them, and there's certain ones where I'm really hyped for this to be added to the game, and then certain ones where I just am I don't really want this, and I'm not sure if anyone else does. And so I'm going to be ranking basically on how much I want them in the game. So I'm not going to take in movesets, because movesets are bound to change. What I will take into consideration is interesting gameplay aspects that have been confirmed. So for example, the Cataclysm, they have the whole gimmick where they can choose what their abilities will be. I am going to assume that is something that will stay in the game. I don't think they would ever remove that sort of gimmick from them. If there is anything known about their general play style, I will talk about it. Specific abilities I will not mention. I'll be going over just the concept, the lore. Typically that'll be specifically for OCs, and just if I think they're representing something important. So for example, if we get another hacker or myth on here, I'm probably not going to be as hyped for it and want it in the game as something more original, I don't know, an ARG character. Adding on to that, then there are going to be certain characters where they're the only one that's representing a certain genre, and I don't think they're very interesting to represent said genre, and I kind of wish it was someone else instead. So in those certain cases, that'll be it. Most of the information that I've looked at into certain characters which I didn't really know was from Forsaken Wiki. I'll be honest, the only character that I don't feel very confident in talking about is the Stalker. I feel like I don't know much about the Stalker, so excuse me if I get any of that wrong. There's probably information that I'm going to be missing out on here. And I'm going to be talking about Freddy Kruger for two reasons. One, because I think they're actually much more interesting to talk about in terms of why they were considered in the first place. And two, it's because the wiki says they are possibly scrapped, meaning there is a 1% chance that they actually could get into the game. So I think that's worth talking about. So starting off with Guest 666, the only killer here that's technically confirmed to be in, some of these killers are confirmed to be added, but at the same time, things could change, let's be real. And I do have some thoughts on him. For starters, I'm not... This thing, I don't love the fact that it's another Oblivious HD character, right? I know Guest 66 wasn't just Oblivious HD, but let's be entirely real, that's what popularized it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not super against it, because again, technically it's not a full-on Oblivious HD character, but still. I think just the general idea behind their lore is interesting, in terms of it being them being friends of Noob, and then they were terminated. Terminated, right? And they kind of went all crazy and whatnot. I think, well, the design is cool. The design is cool, right? I am a little bit against it, and that's because of Dracobloxxer, right? I think what's cool about Dracobloxxer is that they're the only one that's really animalistic. Guest 666 kind of takes that away from them. I think Guest 666's appearance, I think, is really interesting. That looks really cool. It does sort of take away the unique attribute that a Dracobloxxer has, unfortunately, which I'm not fully happy about. I think overall, Guest 666, I think, not really thinking too critically about it, I'm going to say I'm extremely hyped for it and I need them in the game because they're the only one that's confirmed to be next. However, if I'm looking at it in a vacuum, I'm going to be honest, I'm not too bothered with them being added or not. Cool when they're added, I'll be happy, I'll be playing them for a while because I need to get them to level 100 obviously, but I won't be... If they out of nowhere was hey, we're not going to do Guest 66 anymore, we're going to do this killer instead, I wouldn't be the most mad. I'd be a little bit disappointed because kind of been hyping it up now, but I wouldn't be insanely angry. King is a very weird one. King is based off of a character from Combat Initiation, and okay, let me get my stance on what I think killers in Forsaken should be, right? I think they should be a representation of not just Roblox horror, I think that should be the forefront of it, but also just Roblox as a whole, whether that be other games, certain aspects of the platform, like certain features on it, specific items that are really popular, stuff like that. That's what I think Forsaken should be a representation of. I like to think of it as the Smash Bros of Roblox, right? When I'm looking at like the Smash roster for Roblox, I'm gonna be entirely honest, combat initiation is not making the list. I do not think, in my personal perspective, that combat initiation has made enough of an impression on Roblox as a whole. I don't think it's been very influential yet. You know, it's a relatively new game, which is nothing like against it, really. New games can be very influential. I think we got Figure on the list, you know. Relatively new game, still would say Doors is very influential. I wouldn't say that King, especially not King, because I wouldn't even say King is like the most iconic character from Combat Initiation, but I just do not think that Combat Initiation is a big enough game to really deserve a full-on killer. Skins, yes, fair enough. Full-on killer is a little bit insane to me. Again, I'm not like fully against like smaller games getting in, but we're looking at like the confirmed like killer roster, and I mean like this is what they're up against. You've got fucking like Bloxburg, Epic Minigames, Natural Disasters, the first asymmetrical horror game on, like they've got some tough competition here. When we're comparing them to all that, I do not think King is that interesting. I don't think they're actively going to be a bad addition. I want to clarify that. I don't think they'll be an actively bad addition. I don't really want them to be in the game though. Now, Jeff the Killer's a really funny one for me because, like Jeff the Killer. Okay, small side tangent. Jeff the Killer, just as a whole, not just like Roblox and whatnot, is a character that deeply fascinates me. I'm going to be entirely honest with you. I think I have went every single day of my life for at least the past 3 years with at least one thought about Jeff the Killer, because he's just so fucking funny to me. I think it's the best thing ever, right? Looking at it unbiasedly though, I think Jeff the Killer is unironically a really good pick for Forsaken. And I think that's because, to me, they represent the more shitty, jokey side of Roblox horror, right? I would say the other Roblox horror candidates here, maybe bar Kool Killer, because it is based off like a joke video, but I'd still say the game itself was taken relatively seriously. Apart from that, I would say Jeff the Killer's the only like character here that is well known from a joke Roblox horror game, and that to me is Survival the Jeff the Killer, obviously. And I think that's something that's really fun to just reference. You know, I think that's a really funny thing to reference. Obviously, it's also Survival Kill the Killers in Area 51, which I think now that Slasher isn't Jason, I think it's fair to have someone who's a rep for that. We'll get to Slenderman in a minute. I have some thoughts on Slenderman. And I think Jeff the Killer does that also well. I would say Jeff the Killer is a pretty prominent character in it. I wouldn't say the biggest one. Again, I'd say that's Jason or Slenderman, but I'd say Jeff the Killer's like up there as one of the top 5 probably. But I think just considering all of that, plus him having a pretty unique playstyle, simply being a fully stealth-based killer, I unironically think Jeff the Killer's going to add a lot to the table. And I'm going to be honest, I need him in the game. I need him in the game. Slenderman, on the other hand, Slenderman I'm a lot more mixed on, right? I would say their main thing is definitely Survival Kill the Killers in Area 51, which is, again, Jeff the Killer already references it, and I think Jeff the Killer does it well enough already. And I think Slasher, you could argue, still somewhat resembles that. Slenderman's obvious other big claim to fame in terms of Roblox is Stop It Slender. And in case I'm wrong, I could be entirely wrong here, I don't think Stop It Slender was a massive game. I wouldn't call it a small game by any means. I know the Stop It Slender, I think it's like 2 or something. The one that's up currently, the first thing that comes up when you look up Stop It Slender, has like about 180 million visits. So it's by no means a small game. I don't know if I would call it like one of the, you know, biggest Roblox horror experiences ever, and like needs to be recognized and Forsaken. However, I do really think that their playstyle's going to be interesting with the whole, like, obviously not looking at them thing. I don't know how they're going to implement that, because obviously, you know, Forsaken isn't a first-person game unless they change that specifically for if you're playing against Slenderman. I shouldn't mention this with King, but apparently, allegedly, certain maps are going to be altered, specifically when King's playing, not just all the time, because obviously just how massive they are. Apparently maybe Slenderman could get something similar like that, I don't know. As a whole though, when I'm looking at Slenderman, I think that they've got a very interesting concept. I just don't know if I'm like, they need to be added into the game. Obviously, it would be stupid of me not to mention like the whole lore with like them, Jeff the Killer, and Slasher, and how in the current state of the game, especially when you've got like Horror Hotel with like Slasher, Jeff the Killer, and like Slenderman's clothes will hang up, and that one like loading screen, it'd be a bit weird if it wasn't added. In the state of the game now, I just don't think overall I'm too hyped around him. It's very difficult because I would like to see him in the sense that I think his gameplay would be really interesting. But as like a rep, I'll put him in not too bothered, but below guess 666. I think that's a relatively fair placement. Azure, OC killers are like going to be relatively difficult for me to talk about, at least to me, because I think that Azure is interesting. I think obviously having lore with 2-time is a bonus to me immediately, because 2-time currently in the game does not have all that much in terms of lore with other characters. I think having like the ablation gimmick sort of be flipped on its head and given to a killer rather than a survivor is very interesting. I'd be really interested to see if other like killers get a similar thing like that, where it's like you have like a gimmick that's typically for a survivor and then it's like given to a killer based with like lore and whatnot. I think that's really interesting. I think as a design is cool. I don't think I need them in the game. I think I'm gonna be entirely honest, unless an OC killer is like super interesting, they're probably not gonna be a need in the game. I think I'm just gonna cap them mostly at would like to see in the game. But I do think that as is gonna be very interesting. Now, Doombringer is a very popular one, and I would say I can definitely see why. I think Doombringer's concept is really cool. We don't really have like an admin type character, at least killer, sorry. Obviously we've got like Shedlet's Game Builder Man, which you could argue does kind of like go against Doombringer because you have that whole thing of like him just being an admin. But they sort of like twisted like Doombringer's admin thing and sort of made it like a unique thing in the lore. The whole thing of like him hating the other admins because he thinks that they're not doing a good enough job moderating the site. And so him wanting to be the one that like brings her change and so like abuses his power. I think that is really interesting. I think that's great. It also utilizes the banhammer, which is obviously a very popular Roblox item. And so having that sort of used in this killer's design is, to me, extremely interesting. Again, it does give lore to Buildman. Buildman's someone who needs lore. I mean, they already have it with Taffer, to be fair. I think... I don't know, Doombringer is tricky. I think they're going to be like a low would like to see them in the game. Yeah, very low would like to see them in the game. But I think it's not too often. I do think he's very interesting. I think there is a lot of stuff that we've done there. I would be a little bit upset if they were like deconfirmed. I wouldn't be like the most upset though. Now, Flowers might be a very controversial one for certain people, my opinions on them. If you don't know, Flowers is from a is it analog? I'm gonna be honest, I'm so bad with like terms for like YouTube horror currently. ARG, analog horror. It's a horror series based around Roblox, right? That's how I'll describe it. And it's called the Whistle Occurrence, and I think the whole idea is Flowers is this tool used for moderation that goes rogue, right? That's the basic idea. And I'm gonna be entirely honest, I do not think Flowers does a good job representing this side of the Roblox community. I think something like, just looking at like recent memory, something like Debbie Tutorials does a much better job representing this sort of concept. It's also important to note, I think Flowers was started as a bit of a joke, which, a bit ironic that I put him here, but I think that if we're doing something like this being like the only character currently that represents like, again, I'm just gonna say ARG. I know ARG is probably the wrong term. Who cares? ARG, Flowers being the one to represent ARGs, is to me a bit disappointing. I'm very conflicted on. Don't really want them to be in the game and actively think they're a bad addition. I'm gonna go active think they'll be a bad addition because I feel like if that's like the rep we're stuck with, in terms of Roblox like ARG, Roblox like YouTube horror, I think to me that'd be really disappointing. Zombie King I think does a very good job representing an entire genre on Roblox, obviously being like the survive zombie type games, and I think his gameplay is going to be really interesting. The whole concept seemingly being having these zombie minions. There is one thing I'm a little bit concerned about though. In the trivia segment of the Forsaken Wiki, it states something along the lines of, when you kill a survivor, they'll become a zombie. And to me, I originally thought that was like the whole like rejuvenate the rotten thing from 1x, right? But then it specifically states that they'll have certain stamina and certain health, which implies that they'll be an actual player. Now, on one hand, right, this does a very good job replicating the whole gameplay of most Roblox like zombie games. I think like the Apocalypse is a good example. That whole thing is like if you die, you become a zombie. Same with just so many zombie games have this like sort of concept, right? I don't think it translates well to Forsaken as all is my issue. I think Forsaken is just gonna have like we already have like teaming issues and whatnot in Forsaken. Having a way for like the killer to actively be benefited if the survivors decide to cooperate with them, that to me is just going to end in a disaster overall. Zombie King, really cool concept. I love the concept of Zombie King. I think it represents something that is really important to represent in terms of Roblox. I'm gonna put him like here though, because I feel like unless they like revert that sort of idea, I think there are too many issues with Zombie Killer's sort of Zombie King, kit to be too hyped for me. I'm a little bit skeptical. Kool Killer is immediately going to need to be in the game. I think this is a pretty self-explanatory one. If you want more information on Kool Killer, just watch like Balls Necrosis' video. I'm gonna be so real. To sum things up, Kool Killer is the first, or it's the first popular asymmetrical horror character just in Roblox history. Really the only thing dragging him down is I don't think he could have really any lore with other characters, but like that's not too big of an issue to me at least. I don't really have to explain this one. I think Kool Killer just needs to be in the game. I don't think you can have this game without Kool Killer, I'm gonna be so real. Dracobloxxer is another one that I definitely think needs to be in the game. I am wondering if maybe would like see in the game. I think just like having a character, because I did say I didn't really love that like Guest 666 is like animalistic. They seem to be like animalistic but still have like that human sort of soul in them. So they're not, I guess I'm gonna butcher this name. This word, sorry. Anthropomorphic, I think is how you pronounce it. I think that's more sort of down that alley, to be honest. So I guess it doesn't fully take away from Dracobloxxer, but I digress. I think Dracobloxxer is, again, just like a character that needs to be represented, you know, obviously, so like Dracobloxxer is such a well-known game. And I think that, again, just having like an animalistic, just like a character that is like an animal, rather than like any sort of like humanoid thing, is a lot, like, very interesting to me, very interesting. Again, similar to Kool Killer, kind of has like the lore issue, but apart from that, I think I'll put him here. I think Jeff the Killer is a little bit more important to me, especially since I didn't. Sorry, I'll go back to Jeff the Killer briefly. Sorry, I feel like I didn't really mention this. Jeff the Killer to me represents a lot more like sort of like modern, more of the modern side of Roblox horror, because it's I would say when was Jeff the Killer, like 2020, 2020. Maybe 2019. It was relatively recent. So yeah, I feel like one of my issues with Forsaken's upcoming cast and just this cast in general, apart from combat initiation, obviously, there's different issues I have there, is that the characters that are being represented are a lot more on the side of being characters from older media rather than representing anything too new, which is a little bit unfortunate to me. Phosphorus is, I'm gonna be honest, Phosphorus is basically impossible for me to rank. There is literally nothing known about this guy. It is quite frankly just his design. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just giving him a tier. I'm giving him a tier. I genuinely do not know how I would even discuss this guy. Literally has no lore, no backstory, no. I don't think they have like anything they're really based off of. Yeah, Phosphorus. I don't know how I'm gonna rank you. I'm gonna be honest. Now the Decayed and it's the Mask and the Decayed, right? These two are very interesting to me. I think these guys look sick. This is sort of a subsection of Forsaken Killers. These all fall into, if you ask me, and the Bomber did before they were unconfirmed, which, rest in peace, bro. I wanted him in the game so bad. Could have given me a fucking Noise from Pizza Tower skin. Would have been sick, but I digress. These are kind of characters that aren't from Roblox horror, but are changed to be a lot more sadistic characters that, again, are, you know, sort of horror themed, you know? And I think that is something that would be very interesting for more characters to do. I think, again, if we want to go down the route of representing Roblox as a whole, which I think Forsaken should do, I think it's going to be very interesting. So the Decayed and the Lumberjack are two characters that are very closely related to each other. The idea is that the Decayed sort of has aspects from Bloxburg, and to clarify, Decayed is based off of the Lumberjack and Lumberjack Tycoon 2. The Master is based off of Bloxburg, the main guy from Bloxburg. I think that the whole idea is that they're like connected in some way, right? And I think it's just such a cool idea. I don't really have to be fair, there's not really much lore on them. These are just characters that I really like the look of personally. I'm just gonna put them in would like to see in the game because again, there's not really much to go off of. I'll put the Mask just a little bit higher because they have the connection to Bloxburg News Report guy, which is a character that's supposedly upcoming as a survivor. So they sort of have a little bit more going for them. The Charlatan is based around epic minigames. I think of the four, they're the one I'm least hyped for, but I can definitely see what they can do there. I think epic minigames is definitely something that should be represented. Again, if you want to go down the route of representing Roblox, just Roblox as a whole. I don't know if it's what I would love them to represent on everything. I think if we're looking at this, you've got Bloxburg, Lumberjack Tycoon, and Natural Disasters. Those three all make sense to me. Epic minigames, I feel like just hasn't. I don't know if I would say epic minigames has really had the influence that the other three have. You know, I would argue Lumberjack Tycoon sort of like showed what tycoons can be more than just like the basic like get a dropper, get this, get that. You know what I mean? I feel like Lumberjack Tycoon could have opened the door there. I think Bloxburg is the most influential what's the game out there. Roleplay game on Roblox, and then what's it called? The Cataclysm, Natural Disasters. Natural Disasters is just such a big game. Epic minigames, it's also a really big game. I just don't know if I'd say it has the influence. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if Charlatan has like an interesting like gimmick and moveset. I don't think they do. I wouldn't say. I'm gonna put them. I don't really want them in the game. I feel like there's just not as much pull for them being in as there is for the Decayed, the Masked, and the Cataclysm. I just think there's a lot more pull for the other three, personally. I'm actually going to do the Cataclysm now, because we're talking about these, like, characters. We'll get to this guy later. So yeah, the Cataclysm is based on the Epic Minigames Cataclysm, the thing that creates multiple disasters, right? It's supposed to have this really cool gameplay gimmick where it's just, like, it has, like, a different moveset based on what the player themselves picks it to have. All of them being based around different disasters within natural disaster survival. And that's just so cool to me, I'm going to be so real. I think that's just such an interesting premise. Obviously, it has that, like, connection to Stickmaster Luke. I know, this is a very personal one. I think the Cataclysm just looks so fucking cool. I think it's got, like, the best design of, like, any of these killers. And it's such, like, a cool sounding, like, idea. I really want this guy in the game. Fear, it really does make sense to be more down. I'll put him down there. But I really want them in the game. And then we have Guest. I don't remember the other numbers. Who fucking cares? It's Guest something. And this character really confuses me. Guest, whatever, is a character that is another one who is linked to the Baconverse Guest. Well, we already have Guest 1337. We already have Slasher. Do we need this guy? I'm going to be honest, I don't really think we do. I think I'm more against this. Like, I'm pretty badly against this. I don't think... Again, right? Oblivion's HD is going to be represented by Guest 666, Guest 1337, and then also indirectly linked to the whole Bacon and Guest war with Slasher and Guest, whatever the fucking numbers are here, right? I do not care. I'm going to be so real. I don't really want another character that's representing the same thing, you know? I feel like you have such, like, a wide palette you can choose from. Why go for, like, the same thing for 4 characters, you know? Sorry, for 3 characters, and, like, same inspiration for, like, 4 characters, you get what I'm saying? I just think it'll be really boring, personally. A little bit better than Flowers, but I don't know. Then we have the Stalker. The Stalker's just one that I feel like, I think is just a pretty general, like, yeah, I think they would be good to the game. From what I know, they are really big, for Roblox Horror. Again, I'm sorry, I should have done more research on this character. This is the only one I didn't really do research on. That's my bad, to be entirely honest. From what I know, they're just from a game called The Stalker, or like The Stalker Reborn or something like that. I genuinely don't know what the gameplay is. I don't know what it's like. That's my bad. In fact, you know what? I have fucking editors. I can look it up right now, actually. You assume the role of an elite unit 8 soldier in a galactic empire. You and your team have been sent to exterminate an experiment known as the Stalker. He's nearly invincible mutant. Okay, so it's not an asymmetrical, kind of a, we'll say asymmetrical horror game. It's an asymmetrical horror game, not fully, but it's, for simplicity's sake, asymmetrical horror game where the Stalker is the main antagonist. I'm gonna assume, actually, again, I have the fucking page open. What are we looking at? So this is the Stalker Reborn at the 50 million visits. Created 20. Okay, so this is like an old asymmetrical horror game that seems to have been modified over time to sort of be a bit better. Update. So it's still getting updates. Admittedly, it is a bit dead in the gutter. Jesus Christ. I guess this has the same appeal as like Kool Killer, in the sense that they're like one of the first asymmetrical horror game characters. I guess that's sort of the main draw for them. So in that regard, I would say that judging by their impact, I don't think their impact is I don't think their impact is as big as Kool Killer's, but I would say they feel like an important one. I'm gonna... Again, this could be me being ignorant. Maybe I just don't know enough about this character. Maybe I should do a little bit more research. But I would say the Stalker... They seem to be big in the asymmetrical horror sort of bubble, but I think Kool Killer is just so important to represent that I don't know if the Stalker would be as important. Now, we move on to the unconfirmed killers. These are characters that have been revealed, but not confirmed to actually be coming to the game. And first up we have the Figure. The Figure is, I think, a very important character to have. I believe the reason they've not been added is because, or not been confirmed, is because they don't have permissions for it yet or whatnot. I don't know if they've been denied it or anything yet, but they don't have permissions to the Figure, basically. And I think the Figure is a really important character to include. I've already talked about the fact that I don't really love that a lot of this is very much like older Roblox media. I think the Figure is a perfect character to have to represent new Roblox horror. The game Doors obviously only really became popular, I'd say like 2022, I want to guess. Something around that, 2022, 2023, that sort of time. Very, very new game in the grand scheme of things, right? It sort of like influenced games like Pressure, you know, it was big. And I think the Figure is supposedly going to have if they do get added, a play style that sort of like centers around their blind mechanic, obviously the fact that they are blind, their main characteristic. And I think personally the Figure is such an important character to have. I think the Figure is perfect. I don't really see any issues with the Figure being added. Maybe if we want to go into like Forsaken style, maybe it might not translate to it fantastically. I think that's the only thing I can really see. I would argue this guy's more important than Dracobloxxer in terms of being added to the game, to be honest. Now, iTrapped is another really interesting one, if you ask me. iTrapped's whole thing... First of all, they have Lord of Chance. They were like friends of Chance. and I think they like tricked them into taking like a bet or something, and that's what ended up with Chance Forsaken, blah 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 blah. What's really interesting with iTrapped to me is what they're based off of. They're based off of a hacker, which I know, I'm rolling my eyes as well. You know, we've had a lot of fucking hacker characters, but hear me out. And they're a lot more like malicious. They apparently scammed people. They tried to like properly like fuck up the platform. When we've seen other like Roblox hackers, you have like your John Does, which are just like hoaxes, or your Kool Kids that just fuck around for the fun of it, right? This is someone who is actively malicious and actively tried to harm the platform, and I think that's a really cool thing to represent. Like an actual like Roblox villain. I think that's like just really interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I just think that's cool. I genuinely just think that's cool. I don't know what else to really add, to be entirely honest. I think this is someone that would be very interesting to add. I think it's very, you're teetering on the whole idea of like adding like a hacker, you know, we've already had quite a few of those. But I think this is a cool concept. I think this is a really cool concept. Rust, on the other hand, is also a really cool concept. Obviously based around the Rust account, the whole like horror, again, I'm just gonna say ARG. I know it's like more myth sort of type of thing. ARG, myth, that sort of, the stuff Flamingo was involved in, you know? And again, I think this is someone who is important to represent, right? I think having a character that represents this side of, like, Roblox, being sort of, like... Because, like I would say, like, Rust, when it was, like, happening, I would say it was, like, really big, you know what I mean? You know, at least from my perspective, at least from someone who, like, would, like, tune in whenever a Rust video was, like, uploaded by Flamingo. It was this like massive thing, at least it felt like to me, right? And I think it's something that would be really cool to represent. Just sort of like, it sort of to me represents this like moment when like the community kind of like came together to like be really interested in these like weird games that this like one guy was making with this like overarching story, you know what I mean? And I think that's just really cool, you know? I would say like Rust was like very influential for other like myth games, really inspired other people and whatnot. I do genuinely think Rust would be a really sick character to introduce, you know. I'm gonna put him above Doombringer, I'm gonna be honest. I think it'd be really cool to have in there. Null, on the other hand, is... Okay, so the whole concept for Null is that they're a Roblox player that got trapped in the Null Void, or the Null Zone. If you don't know what the Null Zone is, I think I know what it is. I think the Null Zone is, you know, if you ever like glitch out of a Roblox game and you glitch so like far away from the map that you're at this like part where like your avatar is like glitching around and whatnot. It looks sort of like it's like jittering like constantly. It looks really odd. It's that's the Null Zone. And it's sort of a representation of that. And I think it's really cool in concept to acknowledge like Roblox glitches and whatnot and sort of like use that as like a basis for a killer. I don't think the Null Zone is one that I would want to be included though. I don't think the Null Zone is a location that I would find to be as interesting as, or like a glitch that's as interesting as others on the platform, more notorious ones. So I'm gonna put Null in, don't really want them in the game, but I could definitely see a case for them. I don't think they're like a completely awful idea. I just think there's like more interesting things that could be done. This is Animus, and Animus is really, really fucking cool to me. So Animus is meant to be a representation on Roblox's shitty moderation. They have the hashtag on their like show, obviously representing like the hashtag like tags in like a chat. They sort of got like a corrupted face of like the Roblox logo. I think that like this is just really cool. I think having like representations of things that like every Roblox player has like probably experienced and sort of like dislikes is just something that's really cool. Could you argue that maybe, especially in the current day, it'd be a bit of a bad idea for one of the biggest games on Roblox to have a character that actively criticizes their moderation? Potentially, but I'm not fucking considering that. Fuck you, you bum. This character looks sick. This character looks so sick. I think the concept is so fucking cool. I think stuff like this is what Forsaken should do with their like OC characters. If I'm being fully honest, you know, sort of being the embodiment of like things on Roblox, whether it be like hats, features, whatnot. And I think this is one of those cool things that they could represent. Do I put it above Azure? I'm gonna put it above Azure. I'm gonna move iTrapped down. I think iTrapped is like, give me a little bit more, maybe I'll put them in, would like to see them in the game. Moving on to 08. I'm not as interested in this one. Now, they do represent the, obviously, classic astronaut helmet item. Arguably, the Builderman astronaut skin does that already, but I digress. And I feel like... Look, I think it's cool. The whole lore is that, like, these, like, Robloxians went into space to, like, explore space, and then this guy came along and was like, you can't do that, and he killed them, and he turned into one of them, and it's the Thing. It's the movie The Thing. And there's, like, apparently lore on Planet Voss that sort of implies that this is that creature. And I think that lore's interesting. It does sort of muddy the waters to me in terms of what is Roblox in the Forsaken universe, you know? To me, it's already a little bit muddy. You kind of have, like, the implication that there's games in terms of, like, the Charlatan and the Master and whatnot. But then also, like, you know, like, Builderman isn't, like, banning people. TAF is, like, blowing up, like, experiences and whatnot. But those people are actually dying, so it's apparently not players. Then there's the Null voice, there's, like, glitches going on. And there's also Animus, which is, like, people getting banned and what. So it's a bit confusing already. Adding that extra layer of Roblox is this place where you can travel to the moon. Like, space exploration is a necessary thing. What's, like, the explanation for, like, fucking escape alien UFO hobby or whatever, you know? What is that, like, what's that sort of, like, to me at least, maybe there's, like, an actual explanation that I don't really understand. But to me, I don't really get it. So, I think 08 kind of just muddies the waters. Really cool design. Interesting lore. Maybe if they fix it up a little bit, I'll be a little bit more lenient. But so far, I don't really want them in the game, personally. Moving on to ECBF. The whole concept is it's the guy that shows up when you can't fight, when you try to play a game, and it's like, the little shrugging guy that's like, I don't know. This is a stupid idea, I'm sorry. Maybe you could make the argument that you can make it all creepy and scary, like, oh, it's interesting because what happened to the game? What happened to the game? Is it fucking dead and convulsing on the ground, you know? I don't know, I don't really like it. I don't think it's very interesting. As a skin, this could be sick. I think it's a cool thing to reference as a skin, but I don't think you can really do an entire killer around it, if you ask me. You know, I actually think, I'm gonna be honest, I actively think that'd be a bad addition, I'll be real. Could be intriguing if given a little bit more, but I don't know, I don't really see much going on for them. Going on to Chain. Chain is probably the one that I researched the most, because I had no fucking clue who this guy was. Chain is a game on Roblox, which is, I think, relatively new. Really high quality game, I didn't really play, I played it a little bit. To clarify, I played like 3 minutes to get like the general gist, right? It's a survival horror game where you prepare during the day, you find resources and whatnot, sell it to like a shop merchant, and then you have items. Then when it comes at night, Chain comes out and he tries to kill you. That is Chain. That is what Chain is. And the whole concept is the Mars sort of makes him this like immortal being that can just kill anything and has like this thirst for blood. So he's kind of just Jeff the Killer if he was like a grown man, I guess. I don't know. I think that's my thing, right? I think there's a lot of overlap with both Jeff the Killer and Slasher in this regard. If this was like a Slasher skin, or maybe again, maybe even a Jeff the Killer skin, I think I would love that. I don't think they really work as a full-on killer, personally. Again, it sort of has this issue of like, it's a very underground Roblox game. Like, if we want to like go over like survival Roblox games, survival-based horror games, there's definitely better ones to represent that. You could argue maybe the zombie games do that already, but I think that's a bit of a stretch, to be fair. I think there are better games that do that sort of idea. Stick the fucking 99 minutes to the forest deer in there. Yeah, I wouldn't be if maybe again, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I don't know enough about Chain. I'm gonna put them here. At least they're kind of horror related, so at least they've got a bit over king. And then we get to the final one, Freddy Kruger. Freddy Kruger is really interesting for me to discuss because on paper he is just from, you know, so we Kill the Killer's Area 51, right? There's actually a lot more than that. Freddy Kruger was allegedly a part of the first big Roblox story game. And when I say mean story game, I don't mean like camping and whatnot. I mean literally those games where like you walk through like hallways and you go through like different panels and you see like different stories unfolding, right? Yeah, like think of suit art. Suit art's a great example. It's like a suit art game, right? But Freddy Krueger's the main character, the main like antagonist, and there's like jump scares all throughout and whatnot. That's the whole gist, right? And I think that I think that's a media that is very important to represent when it comes to Roblox. He was also in like an asymmetrical horror game, but that's not as important to me. This is what I really want to focus on. That is like a media that I think is forgotten and should definitely be talked about when it comes to Roblox. However, similar thing to Flowers, I don't think Freddy Krueger should be the one that represents it. Yes, they might have been the first. I think Bloody Mary would be better. If you ask me, what is the most influential or just like most important Roblox horror story game? First of all, I'll ask you, why the fuck are you asking me this question, you random little weirdo? But also, I would say, probably Bloody Mary. The Bloody Mary story is pretty well known. I would hazard a guess, even if you don't remember it, most people watching this probably have played it. Because it's just one of those games that I feel like everyone has a universal experience playing for some reason. And I think it should be what represents this, rather than Freddy Krueger. Obviously, there's also issues with copyright, but that's boring to talk about. So, while I think Freddy Krueger has potential, I'm gonna say I don't really want them in the game. I think they have more potential than like Chain, to clarify. I'll put them even above Null. I think there is actually like an argument to be made that Freddy Krueger has like more presence in Roblox horror than all these characters and just like presence on Roblox in general. I don't think they're a fantastic character, but that is my list. Of all the upcoming killers, unconfirmed, and the one scrap one that I thought would be actually interesting to talk about. If you want more information on certain of these, I know Balls Necrosis has done videos on... Off the top of my head, I'm sure there's more that he's done. Specifically Kool Killer, the Stalker, and Freddy Krueger. The only one I haven't watched is the Stalker one, so I probably should watch that. I should have watched this before this. Oopsies. I'm sure if you want like a thorough analysis on characters like Flowers and whatnot, you can definitely find that. It's YouTube. There'll be like a 2-hour essay on it. But this is what I'm thinking. I definitely know a lot of these are probably controversial to the community. I know a lot of people are hyped for Flowers. I know a lot of people are hyped for King. I know Guest 66 is very hyped obviously right now, so putting it this low might be seem a little bit crazy. I know probably no one cares about Animus as much as I do, but to me, I think this is like a relatively fair ranking of how important and interesting these characters would be to add to the game. Obviously, if you disagree, fair enough. You know. Tell me why you disagree. You know, that's obviously a lot more interesting than you going into the comments and being like, I disagree, therefore I hate you. Little people online me, but you know, it's what it is. I don't have a script, okay? I get a pass. If you like this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification to become a little screw that I'll use to put my next table with. And I think with that all said, expect even more for second content. This is my second video I've recorded for it. I don't know if it'll be the second video that comes out for it. Fucking see ya.